Good morning, Buffalo, and welcome to Western New York at Work, your business-friendly conversation. Today, we have Jillian Majka, who's the founder and CEO of JamHR. Good morning, Buffalo, and welcome to Western New York at Work. I'm your host, Dale Martin, where each and every Saturday from 10:30 to 11, we have an amazing business-friendly conversation with the professionals that really are making a difference in this community and are really committed to who they are and what they do. And I should say, more importantly, what they do for this community. And today we're going to be talking about human resources done right. That means we have Jillian Majka with JamHR Consulting Agency. Jillian, welcome to today's show.
Thanks, Jill. Happy to be here.
Jillian, one of the things that we like to do is, we really, before we get into the depth of the conversation, is to have our guests talk a little bit about, themselves and maybe describe your journey.
For sure. It's an interesting one, at least for me, it was interesting. Definitely not traditional. When I was a kid, I didn't know what I was going to be when I grew up and thought, I was going to be a mountain guide somewhere on some mountain. It turned out my path got pivoted a little bit, and I ended up getting a degree in biology from SUNY Buffalo. And then my first job was with Synacor right when I graduated, and that was just because I was in the right place at the right time. From there, I kept growing and went from Synacor to Campus Labs, and so really cut my teeth in Buffalo on some really big startups. They started off teeny tiny, but grew to be very big.
And then one day you started drinking your own Kool-Aid and decided to start your own company. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so, I had my last position was with Cornerstone Community Federal Credit Union. I was the chief human resources officer. And it's such a great community-based credit union, but it was based in Lockport, and I live in East Aurora. So it was quite a hike to get there every day. And I have two little girls, and I'm a single mom. So my nanny was spending much more amount of time with my little ones than I was. And I'm a little bit more straightforward and cutting edge when it comes to HR. And I think they needed a little bit more softer of approach. So I made the decision to leave and took the summer off to really try to figure out, what I was going to do. It really kept coming back to I want to just help people. I want to help people, and the way I know how to do that is through helping them with their people function, and especially small business owners when they're trying to, monetize their business and commercialize it and, make a living themselves. The people function a lot of the time kind of takes a back seat. And that's not because of, they're not interested in it or because they don't, think it's important. It's just they're so busy being the owner and the head of sales and the head of marketing and all of that kind of stuff. So I started JamHR that really, looks at smaller businesses and helps smaller businesses that don't currently have an HR presence within their organization. And the owner, is wearing too many hats, and they need someone, to take over the HR piece, but also with my background in a high growth industry of startups, helping them understand how to scale it and do it correctly.
Okay. And when did you actually start the company?
Last May, so almost a year ago.
Okay. And I'm just going to jump right into it because in this last year, we have seen so many changes. So how has the pandemic changed your business as well as some of the clients that you represent?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the pandemic was not in my business plan when I finally incorporated my business. It was hard for a lot of companies. I mean, people went from in the office to now virtual working, organizing a meeting in person to now organizing a meeting via Zoom, how to keep employees engaged still when they're not having that water cooler talk And then, of course, all of the state and federal legislation regarding quarantining and testing and leave and pay. And there was added complexity to the employment world. But I have to say, I mean, I've been nothing but blessed and happy and excited because I have a great group of clients and I continue to grow every week.
That's good.
Businesses are going to start to come back, and they're going to start to come back to brick and mortar, and take more people from the home work environment back into the office. And people are people. You're going to need the same benefits, handbook, all of that kind of stuff, whether you're virtual or in person.
There's a term that I've heard recently, and I'm not sure if I'm saying it correctly, but it's either disrupt HR or HR disrupt. And I know that you yourself had your own experience. So tell us all about that.
Yeah, so Dale, it's Disrupt HR. And it's actually a national platform, and each city has their own kind of show or series. This was 2 years ago now, because last year they didn't do it because of the pandemic. But yeah, you submitted an idea, and the committee went through all the applications and picked 15 different people to, I think it was 15 different people to do Disrupt. And it was very interesting. You weren't allowed to have any notes. You had to build a PowerPoint presentation. I think that had 30 slides or 20 slides, and it auto rotated every 15 seconds. So if you missed your mark, or you were standing up there looking like a fumbling idiot, you had to move on, because your slide would advance. And I was the top of the show, and it was just an incredible experience. And I definitely want to challenge myself to do another one.
Yeah. Now, I saw just a few minutes of your talking points, and you referenced a particular book while you were presenting.
Yes. Yeah. So Brave New World. And it was called, my presentation was Brave New World, but not how Huxley described it. And what I spoke about is the overregulation in the work environment and how it's decreasing our creativity, and in effect, kind of immobilizing our society to further advance. And so it talked about, like, now we have, 100-page documents on dress code policies. So, you'd think that, now we have no problems with it, or like, we have 100-page manuals on how to treat people, and you think we have no problems with it, but it's just not the answer that we need. And so it's over-regulating the work environment, and we need to allow more space for creativity.
How can someone who's looking for your services, how can they reach you?
Yeah. So first of all, visit my website, jamhr.co. Take a look at it. We're not a traditional HR, pushing policies, breaking pencils type of crew. I like to call us fringe HR, very straightforward individuals. Take a look at the website. There's my email on it. There's a way to contact me, ping me on social media, LinkedIn. There's many different ways to get in touch with me.
Okay, we're going to take another short break, and when we come back, we're going to have more interesting conversations with Jillian Majka. Western New York at Work is brought to you by our key business partners and many business professionals. Bocce's Club Pizza, Staff Buffalo, Buffalo Healthy Living, CAI, Hope Buffalo, Embassy Suites, 716 Limousine.
Hi, Sally with Eat Well Buffalo. Inflammation contributes to so many of our chronic diseases. Diseases like diabetes, obesity, high blood pressure, and many others. And yet we have control to some extent over that inflammation. Some of the things that we can do to decrease the inflammation is 1, eat more fruits and veggies. Try adding a different fruit or veggie to your meal or to your snack. It really makes a difference. Number 2, move more. The more we move, the better it is. Think about every hour for 5 minutes getting up from your desk or whatever you're doing and just moving a little bit more. Just those two things will really help reduce inflammation. So thanks, and eat well, Buffalo.
Type 2 diabetes can have a big impact on your life, but how can it be prevented? Well, the first step is knowing if you have prediabetes, a serious medical condition that puts you at high risk for type 2 diabetes. 1 in 3 American adults has prediabetes, but more than 80% don't know they have it. The good news is, prediabetes can be reversed, and for many people, healthy changes in their daily routine can make a big difference. Take the 1-minute risk test today at doihaveprediabetes.org.
Welcome back to Western New York at Work. I'm your host, Dale Martin, and we've been having a great conversation with Jillian Majka. Let's talk a little bit about some of the different services that you provide, and not necessarily in any particular order.
So there are a handful of different services that we do offer, but I do want to emphasize that each of my clients are very unique and very different. And so we completely morph into whatever they need us to be. So the first package is be your own internal HR department. You know, we're working with your leadership team, you know, right there with you during open enrollment. And this is really for businesses that are starting to grow and they realize that the HR piece is important. The other one is called the HR bat phone. So as everyone remembers, you know, when the commissioner needed Batman in
Gotham City, yes.
Yeah, they would shine the bat light. Well, unfortunately, you know, I don't think I'm going to be able to get, you know, a bat light for me, but we have something called the bat phone. And this means that you have me just in case you need me. So it's 4:00 on a Friday night. And you have an employee standing in front of you with something, an issue or whatever, and you have no idea how to handle it. You pick up your bat phone and you call my cell phone, and I'm right there handling it, triaging it with you. The other piece is a project piece. So let's say you just need sexual harassment, or you need a new compensation program, or your performance management process needs an overhaul, like the annual review or the disciplinary process. We can come in on an ad hoc basis and just perform that specific project for you.
It's very unique, very customized, and as you mentioned, becoming an internal component of that organization.
I've had so much experience developing culture and building and growing companies and what it takes and stuff like that. And, you know, coming in and being right there with the employees and them having my contact information to not make it feel like, you know, I'm a consultant and I'm on the outside. You know, we really pride ourselves on kind of just being part of your team.
Okay. All right. And do you have to be have a certain number of employees for someone to be able to really afford and utilize your HR expertise?
No, I mean, I have companies that are just starting, they're 2-3 employees, and they have aggressive growth plans for the upcoming year. So they're like, hey, Jill, can you come and help us lay the groundwork and get our payroll set up, which I have preferred partners that I work with, benefits set up, and I have benefit partners that I work with, you know, and then get offer letters written and things like that, and then help them throughout the year get all these new employees onboarded and set up some foundational employment practices for them to build their company on.
Okay. And something as simple as a handbook, is that an area that you know, you take care of as well, or is that something you outsource to one of your other many partners? Yeah,
no, handbooks are definitely something that I do. It's funny because you would think that with such modernization of everything that we have, you would think handbooks are dying, but they're a necessary, I don't want to say evil to have, but, you know, they outline key employment practices, and some required by federal or state requirements, such as sexual harassment or paid sick leave or FMLA. So that stuff needs to be documented somewhere. And then I also think an employee handbook really helps new hires understand the culture of your company. So it's that first blush for them when they read it. hearing how the leadership team talks in that opening message, how the policies are developed. Is this a culture that, they're really going to be on me? It's micromanaged and, a high intensity? Or is this a culture where they build a lot of trust, where they say, take as much time as you want for PTO, or, a lot of casual policies regarding the work, how they work. And so that can really help start building the relationship between the employee and the organization.
Yeah. And you also touched upon what I perceive to be the culture within an organization, how they talk to their people, the amount of PTO time that's allowed. Can you just kind of speak to that once again?
Yeah. It's culture is, for a long time, was just this buzzword. And, if you had values, catchy values on your wall, you could check the culture box, but culture is so much deeper than that. It's so much more important than that. If you got to set business goals and set strategic goals,
Yes.
That's the what, but the how that you do it is how you're going to deliver it. And that's through the culture. And so culture is everything from how do leaders communicate with their staff members? What kind of benefits what kind of benefits does an employer provide to the organization? Where's their compensation fall within the market? Are they paying in the median, which is the middle, or are they paying higher? What does their PTO look like? What does their performance management process? All of those things contribute to culture. And you really need someone looking at that. There's countless studies that show over and over and over again that show companies that have a highly engaged, motivated workforce are going to outperform disengaged employees 10 to 1.
Yes.
And so culture can't happen by accident. You might build a culture by accident, and maybe it's going to be great. But a lot of the time, if you don't tend to it and take care of it, and keep looking at it and keep talking about it and pointing out examples to the organization of what you want to see about how people behave, it can kind of become a garden full of weeds if you don't.
Yeah. And as an extension of that, and it's a very delicate subject to really talk about, but I believe that we must go there and address it, because we have to be honest with ourselves. Sexual harassment that takes place, in the workplace, anyone's workplace, has to be something that we have to address. We need to make the proper changes, and not putting anyone or any organization on the spot here. What are some of the things that you feel that we really need to start to be more mindful of?
24 months ago or 2 years ago, New York State it's 3 years ago, 2018 was when they put in all of these new practices and requirements for employers to now have annual sexual harassment training within 30 days of hire, a policy that everyone had to fill out. And the training, it couldn't just be, watching a video, checking the box. The training had to be interactive. It had to follow all of this criteria. And so, we're now 3 years into it. And there are some problems in Albany, kind of ironically, where a lot of this legislation came out of. And, it's interesting because I think some people who get charged with sexual harassment or misconduct in the workplace, they say, I've always done that. I've always talked to her like that, or I treat everyone the same. And unfortunately, that's just not a valid excuse.
Yes.
Doing it the way you've always done it no longer cuts it. And I think we're going to see, it doesn't just take one law to pass and one training to change behavior. Behavior is going to change over a generation. And I think we're going to see it continue to evolve and evolve and evolve. I also think we need to continue having uncomfortable dialogues, pulling people aside and saying, I don't think that was appropriate. Don't do it again, and redirecting. And Dale, it's interesting too, because I think a lot of this intertwines with diversity and inclusion, like how you look at D&I stuff. Over the past year with the Black Lives Matter surge and protests and things like that, a lot of my clients are looking at their own, D&I practices. What are we doing to have a more inclusive workforce? And It's interesting because I think it brings out the same level of uncomfortableness for a lot of people that sexual harassment does.
Yes, it absolutely does. And on that note, we're going to take a very quick pause. To our viewers out there, don't go anywhere. And on the other side of the break, we're going to have more good conversation with Jillian Majka with JamHR. Western New York at Work is brought to you by our key business partners and many business professionals. Bocce's Club Pizza, Staff Buffalo, Buffalo Healthy Living, CAI, Hope Buffalo, Embassy Suites, 716 Limousine.
America, land of the free. It's at the core of who we are. Freedom. The freedom to live without fear, to drive through all 50 states, to sleep safely in our own beds, the freedom to jog where we please, to watch birds in the park, to wear a hoodie, the freedom to breathe. Before we celebrate the freedom most Americans have, we must fight for the freedom all Americans deserve. Because no matter your religion, gender, disability, age, race, all lives can't matter until Black lives matter.
Today I'm going to talk to you about physics. Come on in, girls. Let's go. This is the first rocket to get humans to Mars.
Really tall.
I'm a rocket structural engineer, designing and building parts of the rocket. You are the generation that will be stepping foot on Mars. Do I have a group of astronauts on my hands?
Yes.
You can become a rocket scientist or whatever else you want to be.
Welcome back to Western New York at Work. I'm your host, Dale Martin. And today we've been having another interesting conversation regarding HR and doing it the right way. And we have Jillian Majka with JamHR, who's really shared some insights of things that we may know, but more importantly, what we should know moving forward in terms of culture and how we treat employees and just the whole new dynamics of a changing workplace. That being said, Jillian, what is it like to be an entrepreneur?
So being an entrepreneur is, this just came into my head just now. It's kind of like being a parent. It's the most amazing, but the most tiring experience and hardest thing you'll ever do.
Yes.
At the end of the day, it's all on you. It's, did you touch base with this client? Did you post to social media? Are you building a company that you can be proud of? And then with the added complexity of the pandemic, and then my kids home all the time, it's going to be something that both of us, both me and my children, are going to look back and be like, wow, like you started your business in a pandemic when we were home 24/7 because we were all quarantined. And what they saw, and they saw me do and how to persevere through it, and then also how they persevered. And I think that lesson is going to stick with them forever. Yes. If anything, that would be my biggest wish for my kids is they could see that they can do anything that they want. And traditional avenues, if they want to be a doctor or a teacher or an engineer, go for it. But if they want to, not work the regular 9-to-5 routine and feed the corporate beast, there is a path for them out there and they can do it.
Well, let's face it, as a result of the pandemic and again, the changing workplace, many professionals have had to not just pivot, but reinvent themselves and choosing to become an entrepreneur in a climate where each and every day you got to work harder, work smarter, and tell yourself, I can do this.
Yeah. And I mean, for me, it's a lot of it is my family. Like every time I get a new client, my dad is the first person I pick up and call. And I'm like, Dad, I got another client. And he's just like, his reaction doesn't get any less excited than when I called them and told them I got my first client. And that really means a lot to me.
Okay. Okay, good. Now, I have to ask you this because we've talked about the employer side, the entrepreneurial side. Let's talk about the college student or the individual, he or she, that's thinking about going into human resources management. Any words of thoughts or wisdom, encouragement that you can share?
No, I love that question. Number one, have a sense of humor. Always important to have a sense of humor because you will be dealing with some very, very, very interesting things. Some days will be very ordinary cookie cutter. Other days you will wonder how you manage to get through them. I think sense of humor. I think having any childcare background, meaning like it's, the workforce is, you're managing a bunch of people and, sometimes the arguments are petty, sometimes they're serious. So having that background. And then be pragmatic and always have a reason for the why you recommend something and don't be afraid to speak up.
Okay. All right. Fantastic. And again, anyone that's looking to take advantage, contact you regarding your services, wants to know more information. Again, please provide your contact information and the best way to contact you.
Yeah. So definitely go to my website, jamhr.co. I also have a Facebook page, Jillian Majka, or JamHR's Facebook page. There is also, we have a strong LinkedIn presence, me, myself, more so than the company, but feel free to reach out to me in any avenue.
Jillian, I want to kind of take a different direction. As you know, we are known as the city of good neighbors. And it's one of my takeaways is that that's also a part of you as well as your organization, your company.
Yeah, it's a big part of who I am as a person, and I knew I wanted to build my company around that too. I myself sit on 3 different boards, one of which is Grow Buffalo, and I'm really excited to be a part of that. The new organization that just came up in the last 12 months to really support small businesses through the pandemic, and then now that we're expanding and growing and doing more things. But also I make myself available to new entrepreneurs. Coaching is one of my areas that I'm very passionate about and giving back. So the only ask is buy me a coffee or buy me a beer. And if you have an idea or need help in a direction, you don't know where to go, I'd love to sit down and have a chat with you. I love meeting new people. And I think one of the best things to do in this world is really to give back. Once you receive, you need to give back.
Thank you so much for being a part of today's show.
Absolutely. It's been my pleasure.
Buffalo, thank you so much for viewing today's show and our conversations with Jillian Majka. And you have a great remainder to your day, and we'll see you next Saturday.